Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something that literally every educator deals with, student behavior. We're going to completely shift our perspective. We're talking about stripping away our everyday assumptions and looking directly under the hood at the underlying biology and the context that drives these actions. By the time we finish up, you aren't just going to see a disruptive student. You're going to understand the highly complex biological system that is just trying to survive. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap. We're going to start by decoding the behavior mystery, then take a quick tour of the stress response system. After that, we'll look at what happens when that biological alarm gets stuck before jumping into a super practical diagnostic tool, the ABC behavior chain. Finally, we'll wrap it all up with the decisive element.
All right, part one, decoding the behavior mystery, looking in the mirror.
So the source material hits us with a really fascinating reality check right out of the gate. Before we even try to figure out a student's behavior, we kind of have to look at ourselves. Think about it. When you've had a completely exhausting, terrible day at work, how do you act when you get home? You're probably way less resilient, right? You might even snap at the people you love most. And you don't do it because you want to be mean. You do it because you're overwhelmed and you're unconsciously seeking some unconditional support. Well, guess what? Kids are doing the exact same thing in our classrooms. Their actions aren't just random acts of chaos. They're directly tied to whatever is going on with their internal emotional state. And this brilliantly illustrates the old nature versus nurture debate. It's like a giant chemistry puzzle from the text. Picture it. In one beaker, you've got a student's natural predispositions, safe on its own. In the other beaker, their environment. Again, safe on its own. Kept separate? Hey, it's totally manageable. But mix them together, throw in the everyday stress of a busy school day, and shake the whole shebang up, yeah, you get a highly volatile eruption.
Which brings us to section 2, the stress response system, the biology of behavior. To truly grasp why these explosive reactions happen, the research actually pivots from psychology straight into hard biology. We need to talk about the stress response system, or the SRS for short. Basically, this is the brain's built-in hardwired alarm system. It's designed for one absolutely crucial purpose: detecting threats to keep us alive. Once you realize that what looks like intentional, defiant misbehavior is often just a primitive biological survival mechanism misfiring in a modern classroom, man, it's a real game changer.
So let's take a super quick tour of the brain to see where all this goes down. The sources beautifully divide the brain into two main houses. First up, you have the downstairs brain. This part is primitive, it's automatic, and it's highly emotional. It houses your brainstem, which runs basic survival stuff like your heart rate, and the limbic system, featuring the amygdala, which basically acts as your brain's super sensitive smoke detector. Then sitting above all that, you have the upstairs brain. This is the neocortex. It's the thinking brain. It's where reasoning, planning, and emotional regulation live. It's highly advanced, but, and this is a massive catch, it's also the absolute last part of our brain to fully mature. So how do these two houses actually interact? Well, it happens in 4 meticulously sequenced steps. Step 1, that emotional downstairs brain senses a threat and trips the automatic alarm. Step 2, the upstairs thinking brain tries to quickly assess if the danger is actually real. Step 3, if it decides, yep, this is a real threat, the thinking brain literally goes offline. It shuts down entirely, and your emotional brain just slams its foot on the gas pedal, flooding the body with adrenaline for a fight or flight response. Finally, step 4, once the coast is clear and you're safe, the thinking brain boots back online to pump the brakes. But pay close attention to step 3 here. During severe stress, a child's entire reasoning center goes totally dark. You know what that means? You literally cannot reason with a brain that has gone offline. It's biologically impossible. Moving right along to section 3, when the alarm sticks, the trauma factor.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that not every stressful experience turns into trauma. According to the source material, trauma specifically happens when that stress response system we just unpacked becomes completely and utterly overwhelmed. It's what happens when a child is exposed to danger, but they can't fight and they can't flee. They're just trapped in profound helplessness. Think of it like pressing your foot as hard as you can on the gas pedal, but the car is stuck in neutral. The engine is roaring, revving at maximum RPM, but you are going absolutely nowhere. The emotional brain just keeps screaming. And when an alarm system gets jammed like that, it leads to severe hypersensitivity. The SRS gets so deeply overstimulated that it actually starts misreading totally normal everyday situations as life-threatening. The text shares this heartbreaking story of Kenya, a student who had a history of physical abuse.
Her teacher comes over, just wanting to give her a gentle, encouraging pat on the back, and Kenya violently recoils. Why? Because her overstimulated brain completely misread a caring, positive interaction as a physical threat. She wasn't acting out. Her survival system literally hijacked her.
Which takes us to Section 4, the ABC behavior chain, the diagnostic tool.
So now that we've built some empathy around the biology of trauma, we need a practical, structured way to decode these hypersensitive reactions in real time. And the absolutely crucial point here is this: no behavior is random. None of it. Every behavior has a function. It serves a very specific purpose to help a student address an unmet need, and it's deeply influenced by their specific environment and personal narrative. Even when a behavior seems completely confusing, it is not random, it is functional. To figure out exactly what that function is, we use the ABC chain. A stands for the antecedent. That's the trigger. Now, these can be fast triggers, like a sudden loud noise, or they can be a slow burn, like chronic loneliness or isolation. B is the behavior itself, the action you actually see happening. And C is the consequence, what happens immediately after the behavior, which is the key to revealing its function. For example, let's say a student's antecedent is feeling deeply embarrassed. Their behavior might be suddenly yelling at a classmate. The consequence? Well, they get sent out to the hallway, which means they successfully escaped the embarrassing situation. By mapping it out like this, we stop just blindly reacting to the surface behavior, and we start addressing the actual underlying need. Let's move to our final section and see how this all builds together. Section 5, the decisive element, context and conclusion. So how do we actually apply this newfound diagnostic power in the broader ecosystem of a school? Well, it all starts with the ultimate paradigm shift. When you're standing there, faced with incredibly challenging behavior, you have to consciously shift your internal monologue from asking, "What is wrong with you?" to asking, "What has happened to you?" That is the core of a trauma-informed lens. It acknowledges that yes, adverse childhood experiences exist, totally outside of our control, but it focuses our energy on what we can control, building relationships and deeply understanding context. To truly embrace this, we've got to acknowledge every single student's unique personal narrative. As the sources remind us, parents don't just keep the good kids at home. They send us the absolute best kids they have. So whether your school uses structured frameworks like MTSS or PBIS, or you're teaching in a much more traditional setting, your goal remains exactly the same. You need to be an advocate for context. When you're sitting in the teacher's lounge, be that person who champions understanding the function of a behavior rather than just defaulting to punishing it. Because at the end of the day, your influence is absolutely profound. I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful quote from psychologist Haim Ginott that the text highlights. He says, "I am the decisive element in the classroom. As a teacher, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. You literally have the power to calm a distressed brain and decode a desperate cry for help." So, equipped with this new biological understanding, the next time a student acts out, you've got a choice. Are you going to react to the smoke, or are you going to help them put out the fire? Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer. Keep asking the right questions, and we'll see you next time.